On my channel you will find a lot of information about the mistakes that parents make in raising children and the traumas they cause their children in childhood. Today I will tell you how to properly raise a child, because many of you, when commenting on my videos, write to me. So tell us, how is it done correctly? We know what not to do, but how? In general, what methods can be used to raise a child in such a way as to, well, minimize trauma to the child? Because trauma is, well, such an integral part of human life. It is impossible to raise a child without causing them any trauma. But what's important is not whether you caused it or not, but how you handle this conflict situation with the child, how you resolve the trauma issue. So today I will provide you with 15 such guiding points that you should more implement in your relationship with your child, raising them based on these 15 points that I will present to you today. With you is psychologist Yuliia Latunenko. And for 18 years now, I have been working as a psychologist with families' individual issues as well as psychosomatic issues. So let's get straight to the point. No beating around the bush. And let's start with the first point. What should be done to ensure a child grows up happy, psychologically and physically healthy? The first point. Many parents from the very beginning, as soon as the child is born, already dream about how they will develop the child, teach them to read, count, how they will teach them English from the age of 3. And this is all about mental intelligence. And this is all well and good, but parents do not pay any attention to the development of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is about feelings, it's about emotions. Every child by the age of 7 should know the 7 basic emotions, what they are, and they should be able to talk about their emotions using these 7 basic emotions, as well as be able to predict what emotion a particular action will evoke in another person. So this emotional intelligence is a direct path to developing a child's empathy. And if you have raised the child correctly, developing not only mental intelligence, but also considering the child's feelings, naming these feelings, developing the child's ability to speak the language of the 7 basic emotions, then you have acted absolutely correctly. And this is very important to ensure that the child does not suffer from psychosomatic disorders. This, well, firstly, affects a person's physical condition, their ability to identify their feelings and express them verbally at the time they arise, in the place they arise, and regarding the person towards whom they arise. This is a sign of a healthy person. The second thing I suggest is to pay attention to boundaries. It's very difficult to consider a child's boundaries when the parents themselves don't have such skills, yes, their own boundaries. Parents don't even understand where these personal boundaries are, right? And of course, such parents will violate the child's boundaries, and this can include some emotionally abusive actions towards the child, coercion, pressure, yes, the inability, for example, to accept that the child has the right to be angry and has the right to tell their parents, no, I don't need this, I don't want it, I want to do it differently. There are many such small things where parents will, well, for example, I listen to my patients who then tell me that their parents didn't even want to buy the clothes the child liked and dressed them according to their own style, their own taste, essentially telling the child that they don't understand anything yet and that the parents know better, right? And this is, well, a direct, vivid violation of the child's personal boundaries. So respect your child's boundaries, and the child will respect your boundaries because the child is, it's like a screen that reflects all those blind spots that parents have, let's say, yes, their own problems. And these problems are then mirrored back to the parents by the child as they grow older, especially during adolescence. This happens in conflicts, and parents say, well, where did this bad behavior come from? But if you look closely and start to realize, we ourselves teach children how to communicate both with us and with the world. That is, you need to look at a child as an individual from an early age and consider them as a separate person, a separate personality, and not as your property, as many parents believe. Thirdly, what needs to be done for the proper upbringing of a child is to develop independence in the child. That is, not to be like those helicopter parents or hens clucking over the child and deciding everything themselves. Well, it's very selfish, because when parents do this, they actually don't want to have any additional burdens, and they want to solve the problem as quickly as possible. The child might be, hesitating or taking a long time to decide what to do, but it's better and faster to do it themselves, right? But all of this negatively affects the child's independence and responsibility. So you might ask me, and how do you cultivate this independence? So stop clucking over the child. And already from about the age of 3, when the child says, I can do it myself, this is the first period of separation, or the second begins in adolescence. Well, by the age of 3, the child is trying to separate from the parents. So encourage such separation and initial independence, and also give the child the opportunity to choose. For example, you say, look, you can do it this way or that way. And if you do it this way, there might be these kinds of consequences. If you do it this way, there will be different consequences. And if you choose a third path, then these might be the consequences. And you ask the child, what do you want? What do you desire? Or, for example, if there are things that do not concern the child's life or health, yes, you can compromise a bit on your selfish needs, yes, and tell the child, choose for yourself, for example, which skirt to wear today or which skirt to buy. Or if you don't have money and the child wants to buy something very expensive, you tell them, well, there are these limits, these boundaries. Choose within these boundaries and you will wear that skirt if you have chosen it, right? Well, try to command and decide less for the child, and avoid fussing over them. Instead, giving them the opportunity to choose for themselves and explaining the alternative consequences of their choices. Fourth, you need to teach the child to take responsibility for the consequences of their actions. Many parents tell me, oh, I clean up in the child's house, in the room when they're not there. And why do you clean up? Well, it's dirty there, but it's the child's room, the child's desk. Why are you even going in there? Let it reach a certain stage, then let them clean it up themselves. And in the common areas of your apartment or house, you show the child how you live, how you clean, how tidy you are. Yes, you demonstrate that model of a neat life to the child in your own space as well as in the common areas. But you shouldn't intrude into their room. Or sometimes mothers say, his shoes, those boots are so dirty, how will he go to school? It's embarrassing, shameful. Well, I say that's your embarrassment. The child should face their own embarrassment and start cleaning those boots themselves. Because if you keep cushioning everything for the child all the time, well, the child won't grow up. The child won't have the experience of taking responsibility for what they have done or what they haven't done. So this responsibility is a very important trait of character or skill, yes, to take responsibility. As an adult, a psychologically mature person, therefore you need to be a bit braver here. But teaching a child to take responsibility doesn't mean you should blame the child, because blaming is traumatizing, a traumatizing action towards the child. But responsibility is a bit different. When, for example, a child encounters a conflict and you say, look, let's sort it out. As many participants in the conflict, as many sides of responsibility. For example, you had a quarrel with your friend, right? 50% of the responsibility is yours. 50% is your friend's. And let's figure out how it happened, that you came to this conflict, and how you got here, right? And how he got here. It doesn't happen that only one person is bad or at fault and the other is not. Everyone learns their lessons or conflicts. Everyone contributes to this conflict. Although it may not be so obvious, the responsibility is still equally distributed among the participants of the conflict. And if you teach the child to take responsibility, not all of it, but only their part, to see others' responsibility and their own. Because if you say you are fully responsible, right? The child will just grow up to be a neurotic and will constantly sit in the bunker of their guilt, thinking that they are the only one to blame for everything. No, look, you did this. You contributed to this conflict in this way. And that person contributed in that way. There you go. Therefore, it's important to gradually develop this ability to take responsibility, not all at once, because a young child cannot yet take responsibility for everything. Gradually introduce into the vocabulary, yes, the vocabulary of conversation with the child, yes, introduce such a concept. The fifth point is to come to terms with your childhood traumas, understand them, become aware of them, and perhaps work through them with a psychologist. Because if you want to change the child, it means you have a childhood trauma. And if you want to transform the child for the better, then start with yourself. Because, as I said earlier, the child is just a reflection of all your unconscious problems. Therefore, I would generally suggest that anyone who is going to become a parent first address their childhood traumas, understand them so as not to project their own subconscious issue onto their child. Because this has already been proven. A person whose will was broken in childhood cannot help but break the will of a weaker person, that is a child, in the future. Point 6. Many parents simply engage in such a struggle with their child. But if you take something away from your child, it is the greatest mistake. It is a problem. It is a trauma for the child. So do not fight with your child. Become their friend. Solve arising problems creatively, through play, through conversation. Do not pressure the child. Just ask them what they feel. Inquire about their needs, their feelings. But for this, you need to learn to distinguish the 7 basic emotions yourself. So watch my playlist, Self-Development, and there is a video that will clarify what emotional intelligence is for you. All this struggle with the child arises because in our relationship with the child, there is a lack of conscious feelings, conscious emotions, yes, conscious needs. And very often, parents, driven by such selfish needs of their own, pressure the child and try to break, remake, or transform them into something better. The 7th point concerns the child's sexual trauma. So one must be very careful with this issue. Do not walk around naked in the presence of the child. That is, parents should be, in a sexual sense, completely innocent with the child. Yes, it is necessary to talk about it, but parents should never provide examples from their own sexual life or expose their naked body to the child. This can severely traumatize the child and fixate their sexuality on the parents. So any noises from the parents' bedroom or the child's presence, even accidental when parents are having sex, are unacceptable and very traumatizing. 8th point. Do not lie to your own child, because in doing so, you teach them to lie to you. This is very obvious, so I will not elaborate on this point, nor on the next point, the 9th. Do not manipulate the child, because in the future you will end up with a mere manipulator and be very surprised why the child tries to manipulate and blackmail you specifically. Next, we have the 10th point. But before that, I remind you that I'm eagerly awaiting your subscriptions, if you haven't done so yet. Also, I look forward to your comments with stories about how this was in your own experience, or how you implement all these points in your relationships with children. And if you simply have nothing to write, I welcome that too. A simple word, thank you. The next point concerns results. I have met many such parents in my consultations who are almost only interested in their child's results at school, or some results, perhaps like help around the house, some household chores. That is, it's a dangerous path when you orient the child not to the here and now, not to the process, but to the future, to anxiety about the future, to doubts about whether I might not achieve the result that mom and dad expect from me. And in this way, you form in the child the feeling that their value lies only in their results. And this is a very wrong path. And it forms a narcissistic character structure in the child. So be interested in the process. Try to engage the child. If they don't want to give you, for example, a result in mathematics, then just make it so that the child becomes interested in it. But don't pay money for it. I will talk about this a little later. Another way, that is by your own example, is to simply come up with a game that makes it interesting for the child. But all this requires time from us, which we have become very accustomed to saving. It's easier to sit with our gadget than to talk to the child or come up with a way to interest them in that math or something else. The next point, the 11th, praise the child correctly. What does this mean? You should praise the child not only for the tasks and results they have achieved, but also for their character traits, for being kind, for being empathetic, for being, well, maybe responsible, empathetic, intelligent, for their character traits, for being beautiful as well. It is necessary to make the child aware that they are wonderful. But it is important to praise correctly without comparisons, because many parents praise their child by comparing them to someone else. If you say you are the best of all, you are simply pushing your child towards a narcissistic path, towards a kind of dirty competition where the child will constantly be focused on the achievements of others and will compete whether they need to come or not. They will just need to win and be the first, the best. And that's not life. It's just constantly focusing on some external standards. This forms an external locus of control in the child. That is, you should praise, you should approve without comparing the child. So as the 12th point, I noted, never compare in either direction. So this will be our 12th point. 13th point, do not reproach your child. Don't say anything. Don't blame. Don't say, you're this or that, you did it wrong, you're bad, you could have done better. All this causes toxic guilt in the child, and it fosters a habit of constantly justifying themselves. This greatly ruins life, both personal and social. But then how do you tell a child if they did something wrong without reproaching? Just ask. Every reproach, every devaluation, every negative assessment, shaming, all of this can be replaced with a request. But parents manipulate feelings of shame and guilt. And well, indeed, when you manipulate, the child has less chance to say no to your request. But behind every such manipulation of guilt and shame lies a need, specifically a parental one. And one just needs to learn to become aware of what I want from the child at the moment when I, for example, scold them, reproach them, or shame them, and simply voice this request in an I message. You can say something like, I feel this way and that way, thus feeling bad. Maybe I get angry when the children do this. Not you do, not you, because that would be an accusation. And this is about I messages and you messages. That's it. And you need to describe the situation without using the word you. Yes, say I. Always get angry when people do this and that. Therefore, I ask you, here you can say, I ask you, please don't do that, or please don't do this for me. But you must be prepared that the child has the right to say no to you. For example, right now I might do it a little later. Well, the right to say no in a child needs to be developed, because parents forget about this. And such people grow up to be sacrificial, compliant individuals who are then easily exploited by narcissists and psychopaths. Do not force the child to study, to do homework, to attend school. It's better to engage their interest, because forcing them to learn leads to the child developing an aversion to education. But it's easier to say, sit down, do your homework. I told you so. Well, that's what parents do because it's quicker, easier. But engaging a child with a subject is difficult, yes. And teachers in school may not be very motivated to do this, yes. Well, there aren't many teachers who strongly engage children with their subject, but, well, if there is no such teacher, then parents can actually do it themselves instead of forcing and pressuring the child, because nothing good will come of it. And the last point, the 15th. Never give a child money for doing chores or studying, because this creates a very negative pattern in the child. Later they won't study in college because there's no money, no motivation. You also set a very foolish example by showing that, for instance, mom does housework for free, but the child somehow gets paid for it. Don't force them, or just engage their interest. Ask. Express your request for help. But a child has the right to refuse you if they don't want to do something around the house, because the child's main task is still learning. The main job of a child is studying. Honestly, my mother never forced me to cook, wash dishes, or clean. And I grew up loving to do all of these things. And my home is always tidy. And I approach the process of cooking with love. I am very grateful to my mother for not forcing me to do it. So don't use child labor here. And don't think that a child should do all of this. A child is a child. You show them by your example that the home should be clean and the food should be tasty. Well, the child copies, and they can take the initiative to cook something on their own if they wish. I see many children who are not forced, but they are simply interested and make things themselves, like baking pies at 10 or 11 years old. So there's no need to do all of this with coercion. This is the main principle. That's all for now. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. It means a lot to me. Write a comment about what you think on this issue. How was it for you in your childhood? Were you forced into anything? How did it later affect your attitude towards this matter? How did your parents raise you? What mistakes did they make? And what mistakes do you make yourself? And are you ready to improve your attitude towards your own child? So subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment. If you have nothing to say, just write thank you and